Wow, Batman Begins really does show how to perfectly do a superhero origin movie. Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel Lifestyle Critic. I hope you're having a brilliant day. So in this video we are going to be reviewing Batman Begins, which is a superhero origin movie from Christopher Nolan, and this time it completely reboots the entire Batman live action space, especially after the previous Batman movie to this film, which was of course Batman and Robin, and this movie is instantly so much darker and tells the untold origins of both Bruce Wayne and Batman, and it is so much more darker, so much more layered, so much more involved, more realistic as well, and it tries to really build an emotional connection with the audience so that it can pull on all of the emotional chords so that you really care for all of the different characters. And I absolutely loved all of the twists and turns that happened in this movie, especially when you think you know what's going to happen next and you think you know what you've got yourself signed up for, but then out of nowhere it takes a dramatic different turn, and I'm going to be breaking it all down for you in this movie review. So like I said, the origin storyline of both Bruce Wayne and Batman were just done so brilliantly in Batman Begins. Now certain aspects you have seen before, for example the murder, the brutal murder of both Thomas Wayne and Martha Wayne, but what they didn't show before is that the Bruce Wayne character actually has a fear of bats from a very, very, very young age when he falls down a well, which eventually becomes the Batcave. But I really absolutely love the way in which they used fear in this movie. In some ways, you could say that fear totally personifies this entire film. So for example, his initial fear of bats from a very, very young age, and then the fear that also restrikes him again at the orchestra where he sees a life-size bat where his fear restrikes him again. And this is the thing that encourages him to ask Thomas Wayne to leave the orchestra altogether, which ultimately leads to the death of his parents. I wish that they would have pushed this aspect of the storyline a little bit more. I know he's been carrying this guilt around with him for so long, but I just wish they would have tapped into this particular aspect a little bit more. But anyway, let's look back at the fear aspects in this film. So of course, Falcone is ruling the underworld within Gotham City through fear, and then we also see that the Bruce Wayne character is overcoming his fear and then becomes fear itself, and then we also see that the Scarecrow character is also using the fear toxin. So like I said, I just feel like the way in which they used fear in this movie was absolutely brilliant. And we then see the Bruce Wayne character going on this epic journey of self-discovery and training, and we hear about this in passing later on in Bruce's journey, but this time you really get to focus on it and you get to see all of the training that he does with both Ra's al Ghul and the League of Shadows as well. And then we eventually see that the Bruce Wayne character is returning to Gotham City. And speaking of Gotham City, you kind of have three timelines taking place. We obviously have him when he is a kid. We have him when he first returned 19 years after the event of his parents' death at the trial. And then we have the modern day timeline where he is becoming Batman. And I absolutely loved it how he is trying in the first place to confront all of the corruptness of Gotham City, and then he quickly learns that there is actually a much darker, monstrous thing happening beneath the surface, which I thought was absolutely wicked. Now from a positive point of view, like I said, I absolutely love the way in which they used fear and totally personified fear in this movie in all of the different aspects across this film. I feel like it was used really, really effectively, and also this movie is really, really dark, and I feel like they really embody everything that the Batman character in the comics is all about, in some ways in a much stronger way than the Burton movies did. I mean, they were really, really great, but I feel like this movie really does it in a really, really raw way. In turn, it's really, really dark, it's really, really gritty, and like I said, it really embodies everything the Batman character is. And on the fear point, I absolutely loved how initially you can really feel how fear is totally crippling this person, but then he really confronts his fear, which I feel like is really, really empowering. And then not only does he overcome it, but he then becomes it and uses it as a bit of a weapon against other people that he considers to be enemies. I just think the way in which this character is growing from where he is in the beginning of this movie to the tremendous journey that he has by the end of this movie is just absolutely very, very empowering, like I said. And on that point, I absolutely loved how they just really focus on humans and the disasters that humans can do, but also the brilliant triumphs that humans can do as well. And they completely remove any thought of any superpowers, and if anything, they really focus on the realism of what an extraordinary human being can do and what they can become. And I just feel like they took the Batman mythos and just created a brilliant drama noir film, and really is a drama over style and substance, which I feel like Batman Forever and Batman and Robin really were examples of. However, from a negative point of view, the thing that really bugs me about this movie is the way in which he just brutally slaughters the entire League of Shadows. I mean, they gave this character so much. They obviously gave this character shelter, they trained this character so much, they fed this character, they clothed this character, and they just kind of built him up to be this massive person and really did help him to ultimately become the Batman character. Now, I know they explained why he did what he did, because they were just going to completely destroy everybody in Gotham City in a really, really brutal way themselves. But I just feel like, you know, he could have at least had a bit of a conversation with him, and he doesn't really bat an eyelid, he doesn't really think twice about what he's doing, he doesn't have any remorse about what he's doing. Like I said, I know they explain the reasons why, and they do justify his actions, but I just feel like they could have done a little bit more with this movie. But you know, that being said, they have some brilliant twists and turns, and apart from this one nitpick I have with this movie, otherwise, I feel like the storyline is actually pretty perfect. So from a cast and characters point of view, it's a bit of a running joke now that Christopher Nolan always selects the same kind of people for all of his different movies, which I do think is actually pretty hilarious, but the cast and characters, at least in Batman Begins, are absolutely brilliant. So let's go through them one by one. So first up, we of course have Christian Bale, who does such a good job in terms of playing both Bruce Wayne and Batman. He totally captures the essences of both of these characters so well, and all of his performances for both of these characters, he is just able to capture both the light side and the dark side. And I'm really, really glad that in this movie they really did focus on the hero over the villains, which I feel like in the first 4 movies, they definitely did focus on the villains way more than the Batman character. And like I keep saying in this review, I feel like the way in which they looked at the fear aspects of both Bruce Wayne and Batman were just absolutely incredible. I loved it when Batman just first appeared, literally was this absolutely magnificent character that just kind of came out of nowhere, very, very terrifying. And I love the way in which they used shadows with this character, as he literally just came out of nowhere, instantly disappeared as well. So you can really feel the fear that his enemies are feeling when this character just suddenly appears and is just being so brutal with them as well. I feel like Christian Bale totally nails the Batman voice as well. Very, very deep, very, very menacing. I just feel like he totally captured it. I was a little bit unsure when Christian Bale's first announcement was released all those years ago, but he totally proved everyone wrong and did such a good job. I absolutely love how layered the Bruce Wayne character is, and how in the beginning he is on a bit of a revenge mission, and then he just really does want to purify the Gotham City, so you really can feel that his heart really is in the right place, and he is just constantly coming up against all these brilliant massive struggles, and the way in which he rises up against all of them was absolutely brilliant. I love how he became the Batman character. So you really got to see not only the way in which he created the bat suit, the way in which he found the Batmobile, but also you got to see the way in which he created the Bat Cave as well. I just feel like they focused on all of the different aspects really, really well. I loved how he was just confronting first the corruptness of Gotham City, and then we begin to see his rogue gallery of villains taking place as well. And I feel like Scarecrow is such a great villain, and was one that hadn't been seen in live action or in any other movies, and I feel like they captured him in a true comics represented way really, really well, but also in an authentic way within this Nolan world that was really dark and really, really gritty. And the other thing that I loved about the Batman character is that they did retain the fact that he is a bit of a playboy, and the way in which he is able to use his extravagance and money to attract women and to hide behind this persona so that nobody really suspects that this person is the brilliant Batman character. And as far as Bruce Wayne is concerned, I loved also the stuff that was happening within the Wayne Industries business, and how you can kind of see that our character is trying to take advantage of the fact that Thomas Wayne isn't around anymore and he is kind of making the business his own, and the way in which this character is really startled when Bruce Wayne is returning back to Wayne Enterprises at the end of this movie. I thought was really, really wicked. And finally, the last thing I'm going to say is I just feel like they balance the strength and the heart of both Bruce Wayne and Batman absolutely brilliantly. Next up we have Michael Caine, who is playing Alfred Pennyworth, definitely the unsung hero in this movie, and definitely did feel like the foster father and the godfather to Bruce Wayne, and was both maternal and loving, but also having a really strict side and really pushing the Bruce Wayne character as well. But like I said, you can always tell that Michael Caine's Alfred Pennyworth, his heart definitely is in the right place for this character. Next up we have Gary Oldman, who was equally brilliantly playing the James Gordon character, who was the only uncorrupt police officer. And I loved how they actually showed the entire police force are really, really corrupt. So I just feel like they pulled all of the Gotham City staples into this film so brilliantly without it actually feeling overcrowded. I feel like Nolan is really, really talented in that respect, because he is able to pack in loads of stuff happening in his movie, but it never feels like it's overspilling or is overstaying its welcome. It just paces through everything, and all of the material is really, really great. Next up we have Katie Holmes, who is playing a brand new character called Rachel Dawes, and I love the fact that they created a bit of a new childhood pal for the Bruce Wayne character that was with him from childhood all the way up until now. And this role originally was going to be Harvey Dent, as obviously we see the Rachel character then eventually becoming the district attorney in Gotham City, which is obviously Harvey Dent's position. But actually they wanted to explore a bit of a love interest for the Bruce Wayne character instead of a best friend, and obviously they brought in the Harvey Dent character in the second movie, and I absolutely loved what they were doing with this character. That being said, I do feel like Katie Holmes didn't really have that much chemistry with Christian Bale, but I do love the advice that she was giving right at the start of this movie, which really did follow Bruce Wayne across this movie, and I absolutely loved her final line right at the end of this movie, where she was recognizing that actually Bruce Wayne is the mask for Batman. Literally, I thought that was so mind-blowing, and it's just such an interesting perspective shift, as everyone is always thinking that Bruce Wayne is the main character, and then he becomes Batman, but actually, Rachel Dawes was able to see that it's the reverse. Actually, this person is Batman, and Bruce Wayne is the mask that he puts on top. I just thought this perspective was just absolutely incredible. Next up we have Liam Neeson, who is playing the leader of the League of Shadows, and I absolutely loved it how originally this character is a bit of a mentor figure, and is helping the Bruce Wayne character ultimately become Batman, and I love the way in which this character was using this against him right at the end of this movie, and was really mocking him and really mocking the lessons that he hadn't learned. And I absolutely love the final twist right at the end of this movie. You really didn't see it coming, but like I said, Nolan is so good with how he structures the movie that it literally did come back 360 right at the end of this movie, which I thought was really, really good. What I didn't appreciate was the fact that they whitewashed the Ra's al Ghul character. But that being said, Liam Neeson still did do a really, really good job, and I loved how this character is actually using martial arts to overcome all of his difficulty that he's gone through in his life, and to overcome all of his fear. And I just thought by the end of this movie, this character was so good up against the Batman character. We've also got Cillian Murphy, who's playing the Jonathan Crane / Scarecrow character, and like I said, he was so good in this movie, so scarily calm when he's kind of looking at you and when he's kind of speaking as well. And then when he puts the Scarecrow mask on, he just becomes an absolutely brutal villain. From a Jonathan Crane perspective, he is a specialist in psychology of fear. And when he becomes Scarecrow, he totally manipulates and abuses this, and just is able to inflict fear into people, which I thought was just so barbaric. And I know this movie isn't really a superpowers based one, but what I do feel like this character is able to achieve really does kind of scream superpowers, and I just feel like the way in which he is able to elicit out everybody's true fears and really make them in a state of terror, and then abuse this, I just thought was absolutely crazy. And the ambition that he had in terms of putting his fear toxin into the water supply is actually something that his TV version did do in the Titans TV series. And obviously the Scarecrow character is so synonymous with his fear toxin, and I feel like they used it in a really, really great way in this movie. And we also have a third villain, obviously the Falcone character, who is the mob boss of Gotham City, and I feel like the way in which this character was able to control all of Gotham City in terms of all of the main inputs and outputs with the city, with all of its drug trades, and the way in which this character is so fearless, I thought was absolutely brilliant. And then finally we've obviously got Morgan Freeman, who is playing a character called Lucius, and I absolutely loved it how this guy was the weapons master for the Bruce Wayne character, and the twist that this guy has right at the end of this movie was absolutely incredible. And so from a cast and characters point of view, I feel like they're really, really great in Batman Begins. So from a visuals point of view, I absolutely love this movie. I feel like the dark aesthetic just works so well, and the way in which Nolan created the Bat universe in this world was so, so good. So obviously we have the becoming Batman aspects in this film. So the Bat suit was absolutely brilliant. The Bat voice was really, really great as well. The Bat signal that we see right at the end of this movie was really, really cool as well. The Batmobile was absolutely brilliant. I love how this is in its very early stages, and then as the movies progress, the Batmobile becomes bigger and better. I absolutely loved all of the Bat gadgets, and I love how he even created the Bat cave. And I love the way in which he also uses bats in this movie, such a thing that he uses sometimes in the comic books, and on the animation series as well. And the way in which they just personified and embodied that into live action, I thought was just so slick. The way in which he just uses bats as supporters to distract all of his enemies and then to make his exit. I just thought, wow, they really have captured Batman so brilliantly in this movie. But not only that, they have also captured the corruptness of Gotham City so realistic. In some respects, it doesn't really feel like a superhero movie, as it is just such a realistic portrayal of this really dark town that is just becoming worse and worse. And then the fear toxin as well. First you see it on a one-to-one basis on how people are going to react to this and how it's slowly sending them into a state of hysteria and into madness. But by the end of this movie, when you see what's happening on a national scale, with the fear toxin embodying a lot of people, and the way in which actually a group of people are really menacing and really, really terrifying as they are losing their humanity and their sanity, and the way in which these people are going to react with this fear toxin, I just thought was absolutely incredible. Finally, I love the way in which they were just telling their stories across loads of different timelines. Obviously, this is something that Nolan did to a completely different level in the Memento movie, but I just feel like they used it so well in this movie. And finally, we obviously have the Hans Zimmer score. So from a musical point of view, I feel like it totally evokes all of the emotions that you need to feel from a musical score's point of view. And so from a visuals perspective overall, the cinematography in this movie is a true spectacle. So from a comparisons point of view, I feel like this movie is absolutely brilliant. I think it's so much stronger than the preceding first four movies. Even though this movie is absolutely incredible, I think what Christopher Nolan managed to pull off in terms of just increasing and upping this with the sequel, Dark Knight, is just absolutely incredible. Obviously, Dark Knight is a stronger movie, but I just feel like Batman Begins was just so incredible. And I absolutely love the way in which they teased the Joker right at the end of this movie, which is absolutely brilliant. I also think, comparing it to other superhero origin movies, as much as I absolutely love all of the Marvel movies, I do have to say that Batman Begins is a lot stronger than Iron Man, Incredible Hulk, Captain America, Captain Marvel, Thor. I feel like Batman Begins is such a great example of how you really do a superhero origin movie correctly, and there is a lot of inspiration from other source material from the comic books as well. So for example, Year One and Man Who Falls from an international perspective, and they also borrow from Long Halloween in terms of all of the Falcone stuff, and also Batman returning back to Gotham City. And I feel like you can also compare it to the animated movie special Soul of the Dragon, which really does focus on Bruce Wayne's time when he is training with all of the League of Shadow members. And so I just feel like from a comparisons point of view, not only is there a lot of inspiration being taken from the comics, from the animated series, and from the animated movies, but I just feel like comparatively to other Batman movies and other superhero movies, this one was actually really, really strong. So overall, I'm sure you can tell I absolutely love Batman Begins. I feel like they packed in so much into this movie. And like I said, the structure of this film, as all Christopher Nolan movies are, is just so brilliant. Every single act, it kind of feels like a brand new storyline is kind of taking place while still continuing everything that you had seen before. I absolutely love the fact that they had villains that we had never seen before in the live action movies and in the 60s TV show, namely Ra's al Ghul and the Scarecrow character. And I absolutely love all of the darkness, the realism, and the focus on drama over comedy and over like flashy, gimmicky stuff that had taken place in the other Batman movies. And I just feel like Christopher Nolan and Christian Bale just does such a good job with this whole Nolan series and the Dark Knight trilogy, which is absolutely incredible. And so for all of those reasons, I have to give Batman Begins a massive 8 out of 10. Now I'd love to hear what you thought of Batman Begins, so let me know in the comment section below. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you in my next video.